Welcome everyone to I was about to say the NBA podcast, the L7C podcast, NBA edition. Today we are reviewing the conference finals that just concluded this past Sunday and previewing the NBA finals that will start this Thursday. Man, we have finally reached the NBA finals. We have our basketball aficionado, Mr. Evan Debo. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, Martin. It's NBA Finals time. Ready to rock and roll. It should be a good series, I think. Big East versus West matchup here.
Yeah, and it seems like this was a matchup once we got to the semifinals that a lot of people were pushing that they want to see with the Warriors and the Celtics going head-to-head in the NBA Finals this Thursday. But let's talk about how we got here first. Do you want to start with the East or the Western Conference Finals?
Let's start with the West.
Okay. So we had the Golden State Warriors. They were taking on the Dallas Mavericks. Dallas surprised a lot of people getting to this point. Obviously, they took out the number one overall seed, the Phoenix Suns, and Golden State beat Memphis to get to this point. And we both had Golden State winning this, but I'm going to be honest, I had the series going a little bit longer just because of the way Luka and the Mavs were playing. I had it going in 7, but the Warriors ended it in 5, Evan.
They did. Yeah, we both had these teams. I absolutely thought it'd be more competitive, but I mean, it just was just way too much depth and versatile scoring from the Warriors. And yeah, they take it in 5. I mean, I thought at least go 6. I could have seen it go 7 just with how well they played the Suns, the Mavericks, heading into this series. But I mean, I think there are a lot of things that stood out for me. Again, I think there were a lot of bodies thrown at Luka. He still went off and had his throughout the series. I think they were able to clamp down on some of those other things. I mean, Luka from all the help he was getting in that previous series with Phoenix, Reggie Bullock really was nothing this series. Spencer Dinwiddie had that good Phoenix closeout game and, had some spurts here or there, but he wasn't the same. They just, a lot of those fringe players they depended on to, provide, some support and spell Luka some minutes here and there. Really struggled. And then, again, they, I think they struggled with, again, the emergence of Kevon Looney once again for the Warriors too on the front court. I mean, Dallas didn't, I absolutely, on paper, you'd say Dallas has the more size, but I mean, once you start getting into the small ball stuff with the Warriors, again, like, Powell's unplayable. Maxi Kleber couldn't stay on the court. Like, that was a huge problem. They desperately needed him, in some of those large size matchups. But, credit the Warriors who've reinvented themselves. I don't know, 2 years ago, we would have said, hey, this is a team that, and they're not even having the James Wiseman piece in here at all, that this is a team that was going to be NBA Finals bound again in a couple of years. I mean, it's not the Warriors team of old. It's a different Warriors team. Obviously, the 3 components are still there. Clay had a really great series, especially in, he was a game early with the Game 6 Clay thing when he, went off in, Game 5 at home. But, he's starting to find his rhythm a little bit more. There are a lot of questions, obviously, coming in this year about who's going to be having basically not played basketball in, like, the better part of 3 seasons. Like, but, I mean, he's still a shot maker, and he's going to continue to be about making shots. So, I mean, I've just been impressed with what they've been able to do. I think, obviously, they're just so smart, especially off ball and how they attack you, and it's just death by a ton of paper cuts. Again, the Warriors could scheme all day for Luka and the game plan, and that's the enigma of what makes the Warriors and this iteration of the Warriors so challenging. Is like, there's not one guy I think you can go to any night. There's tons of guys you can go to that they are capable of beating us, but you never know who it's going to be. Like, it varies. It could be Clay this night. It could be Curry this night. It'll never be like, I don't feel like it's ever hey, there's two guys that just eat you. I feel like it's always one, and you never know which one. And as the game ebbs and flows, that becomes clear to Steve Kerr and the Warriors, and they feed the hot hands. Between you add Poole into the mix now too. So those are some of my takeaways. Martin, what about you?
A lot of the same things, but I think also with the Warriors, like I personally felt like as long as they had the main three and the coach, they would still be up there in the West. But I don't think anyone could have anticipated, obviously, the emergence of Jordan Poole. We've talked about him every time that we've done these. And then Kuminga and Looney too. And it's kind of crazy too. Like these Warriors aren't even in full strength. They don't even have Gary Porter Jr., Otto Porter. Like there's still a lot. And Iguodala, and you already mentioned Wiseman. Like they still have a lot of firepower in not necessarily just the offensive, but like gritty, defensive, hustle play type firepower left that we say it all the time, contracts pending. But if they can keep them together, depending on what they do this next 2 weeks or so, they're going to still be a contender for the next like 3 to 5 years.
They will. Martin, another name that I've just been incredibly impressed with. This is going to sound taboo if you've been following along, either to us but I mean, been watching the broadcast in and outside of the pod. The love finally coming Andrew Wiggins' way for how
and Andrew Wiggins,
he was drafted, by the Cavs, and the highlight of the Kevin Love deal, and struggled to find his way in Minnesota there, and then the Warriors placed him into a system, essentially replacing KD, with him, and I mean he's produced, he's bought into his role, he's not settling for those long twos anymore. He's really bought in defensively, Martin. So he's had, let me see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of his last 6 games. He has 3 double-doubles. So, like, that's when people are looking at, like, how are the Warriors out rebounding, like, Memphis by 22, like, or whatever that absurd number was in the final game. And how are they continuing to crash the boards despite not having the size? Like, Andrew Wiggins is one of them. Steph is a great rebounding guard for his height. I mean, he'll routinely grab 6, 7 plus boards, and you're like, you look at that sheet and go, what? But Wiggins is eating the glass. He's not had less than 5 in the last 7 games. He's hitting timely shots. Back to game 3 in the series at Dallas, he dropped 27 points on 11 of 20 shooting with 11 boards. I mean, that was just an impressive performance, but he's doing it on both sides of the ball. I heard an interesting on the Simmons and Russillo podcast this morning. I heard an interesting thing I want to throw at you of, like, we can't dog LeBron for this because, his, hey, I got to win now stuff is produced. But, like, rewind a few years back, and I'm like, if you have Andrew Wiggins, and you hold on to him and don't trade him for, Love immediately and see how it goes. Like, I mean, he's not, I think it worked out for all sides and stuff, but, like, you look back to, like, the assets the Cavs had and what the Warriors had, like, 2 years ago with, again, having the number 1 pick with Wiseman and everything else. And, like, man, the Cavs had a lot of, that was the talking point on the podcast this morning of, like, hey, like, Cavs had a lot of assets to throw at things, but, it's not like Michael Jordan here is, less than, in terms of, what he brings to the table. Like, it's taken a while and it's taken the right coach and the right team, but Steve has him firing on all cylinders. And I've just been really, really impressed with, I mean, again, like, it was a joke. I sent you the meme, I think, of, again, like, Kevin Durant out of the playoffs again, and the Warriors replaced Kevin Durant with Andrew Wiggins, and they're still humming along. Like, obviously there's more to that, and it's got to be a year where, LeBron and AD are down and so many different things in the West. All the Denver things we've talked about, Portland falling off, like, it's got to have some things bounce their way. But, I mean, he's just been impressive to me, Martin.
And it's not even the first time, obviously, with the LeBron win now thing, because we brought it up and we didn't even mention another team like the Pelicans. Just look, I mean, they got to get rid of Brandon Ingram for AD, and he is a hooper. So you put someone in the right situation, right coaching staff, right organization that believes in them, and they put the work in the offseason. And you could see how someone like a Wiggins or a Brandon Ingram and can blossom. It's just funny how they both had to be traded by GM LeBron.
So Dallas goes home. Obviously, I think they could use some. Obviously continue to try to put resources around Luka. Who's still so young. Obviously they
23.
What they could acquire Dinwiddie. They've got some contract stuff to figure out with Brunson and how much he's going to command and all those kinds of things too. But I mean, they're also a sneaky good with some of those guys. They're also a sneaky good trade team, I think, for the next unsettled star. I think there's potential for them to be a sneaky player for some folks out there around the league. Any names stand out to you, Martin, where you're like, I mean, let's not get into cap details, but because I think in this day and age with pick swaps to third and fourth teams to take on salary that almost unless it's you're trying to move Russell Westbrook's contract, I think most teams can figure out the margins versus, hey, 10 years ago everybody's like, well, the numbers don't add up, we can't do this. I think teams are way more creative. So I don't have numbers in front of me or anything, but are there any names that stand out to you where you're I could see them being a player this offseason on X?
It's kind of funny too, as I pulled up the Dallas Mavericks roster and their salaries, because we brought up Jalen Brunson, because they're going to have to make a choice if they're going to give him all the money or what are they going to do, because his family said he's not taking the discount. So I do think that's going to be a big factor in Dallas's free agency, because currently he's making $1.8 million a year and he wants the 17 to 20. Luka still has.
I think he'll get it and then some. I mean, that's the same range the Cavs are trying to get Colin Sexton at right now. And I mean, Brunson's had a heck. I mean, I don't know. Let's do that. Brunson or Colin Sexton right now for, say you got $18 million to spend. Where are you going?
Right now, Brunson. Just right now. I mean, nothing against Colin. It's just Colin was hurt. I already know what I got.
Yeah. He's just it's a recency bias there. I'm kind of leaning Brunson too, and I really like Colin. Mm-hmm. He scored 24 points a game before last year.
Yep. Yeah. So I mean, some other teams around the league, we've heard some weird stuff on the Nets don't want to lock in Irving long term. Could this be a Irving Luka thing? I'm just getting crazy out there. More realistic things I can see happen. There could be some sneaky stuff with Zach LaVine. There could be some stuff with. I think.
Oh gosh,
I think Zach is more logical.
Jeremy Grant with Detroit, I think, is signed the big deal and seeing, hey, it ain't all worth sign the big money to go to a team. And see what Blake Griffin did was he ponied up and agreed to trade to go to Detroit and get out of LA, and the roses aren't always as red as they could be on the other side, kind of thing when the team's that bad. But
I don't know, man. I'm seeing a bigger thing. What about, I know we've talked about these people legitimately. What about them trying to get Rudy Gobert or DeAndre Ayton? Because we both think one of the Jazz people, if not both, are going to be out. And DeAndre Ayton, the way they benched him in game 7, I just feel like he's going to be out. I feel like one of those two players or Zach LaVine, one of those three are going to end up in Dallas. But Dallas isn't known for really signing bigger free agents throughout the years, though.
They're not, but I mean, I think you're right. I think those are other two names to keep in mind. I think there's a solid statement where you could see some serious movement, with names of that caliber, right? I keep hearing things about Charlotte trying to get off the Gordon Hayward deal all of a sudden. I don't know if Gordon Hayward's not a move the needle type for Dallas, but I just want to say that's another name I could see moving around, somewhere to fill I could see the the Cavs being a player for, taking on that contract. And I mean, they'd have to figure out some odd and end stuff here and there, probably with their 14th pick. But like, there's enough of those players around. But I mean, they need a second facilitator, and that could continue to be Brunson emerging, but that comes with paying the man, and then obviously too, you got to figure out what else you're going to add around, because I mean, Brunson himself can't be what gets Luka over the top. I mean, I think you got to continue to try to draft well, continue to try to develop and scout players, international players, be contenders in the buyout market. Like, I think there's a lot of possibilities there, but again, I would not be surprised if they're highly active trying to improve upon where they went in this series. Western Conference Finals, 23-year-old superstar. This is only the scratch of the surface. So, Martin, do you want to swing it east?
Yeah, let's swing it to the Eastern Conference with the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. So we go there, which that series, a lot of the games were blowouts, but then at the end, we got a Game 7, which lived up to the Game 7 hype. And Boston takes it 4-3, winning Game 7 in Miami. Evan, this series, I mean, it started off with blowout. Game 3 was close, blowout. Game 6 was closer. Game 7 down to the wire. What did you think of this series? I think we both had Boston winning. We both had Boston and Golden State. I think our difference was just the amount of games it would take. But besides the blowouts, man, these last 2 games, I enjoyed this series. And, man, I started cheering for the Heat once it came to Game 6 and 7.
Yeah, we both had the Celtics here. I didn't see it going to 7 and like down to the wire in 7. I mean, what a treat to see in that final game it'd be close, because you're right. I mean, it was just odd, and that's been the theme throughout these playoffs and a lot of other games too, where it's just been like the 55-point Memphis blowout of the Warriors. Like, there's been so many options, or like so many games you turn on, you're like there's just like, I know the league, like on any given night, you don't bring your A game, you can get smacked pretty good, but like. Yes. These are also professionals at the height of, the game, like in terms of the hierarchy of, the level of competition. Like, we're talking conference semifinals and conference finals. Like, there shouldn't be that big a margin, between these things. But you're right. I mean, it just is amazing to see. I mean, the Heat came out and laid the smackdown Game 1, 118-107, and then Celtics came back, 25-point win. Game 3 was close. Game 4, and a lot of blown leads in here too. So like, there were times where a team was up at half, and then like, Heat would go on a run. I think it was that Game 3. I'd have to check the individual box score. Yeah, it was. Let's see. They were up. Boston was up at half. Doing the quick math here. 40. Nah, it wasn't Game 3. It was one of the games where Boston had a halftime lead, and then just came out, and the Heat just poured it on them. But I mean, so like there's that side of things, but there were so many games within it. The Heat just, I didn't pick them to win, but I mean they impressed the heck out of me, Martin. Like, and that was with damaged goods and Tyler Hero, who was unable to play for most of the series and really had nothing to contribute in Game 7. Kyle Lowry missed some time. Like, there were times where like, holy crap, there's Kyle Lowry, and then there's the bad Kyle Lowry, right, where he's flopping all around the field or flopping all around the floor, over exaggerating stuff, and then he'll do a full court Kevin Love pass to force the issue on the Boston D. I think part of the blowouts. I mean, there were a lot of guys that missed a lot of time in the series, right? Like, every night you didn't know if Time Lord was going to be able to play. Marcus Smart was going to be able to play. When we recorded last, I believe it was Game 1, and Horford and Smart were both out in Miami. So I mean, like, there was a lot of that game within the game, and like matchup differences and stuff too. But I mean, the Celtics did it. I mean, obviously they snuck it out in Game 7, but it was just a great series. Like, nonetheless, of like, I don't think you legitimately knew, while the margins were big individually, I think you knew that, like, hey, like, every game was going to be, you didn't know who was going to come out throwing haymakers, and whoever came out throwing haymakers generally won. So, I mean, impressive series. I mean, Boston just from January on has been the team. Like, I definitely get college football vibes from this. How many times do we see a team, like, take early season losses? The Celtics did a lot of those. Like, I had them, like, dead in the water. And then, they find the rhythm at the right time. They beat everybody who's in front of them, run the table, and, like, it's the team with momentum. Boston's been the team with momentum. They've had back-to-back Game 7s, new coach with Ime Udoka, who's, just pushing all the right buttons and getting the most out of his players. I'm excited for this finals to see the Warriors in Boston. But, again, the continued emergence of Jason Tatum, like if every year's got like a narrative to who was the up-and-comer who did what, well, that was Giannis last year. Tatum is continuing to write his legacy now. And how many times has Boston not gone over the hurdle in the last 4, 5, 6 years? You go back to 2018 East Finals with the Cavs. Again, getting knocked out in the bubble by the Heat. Like, they've been so much every once in a while you'll get those rumblings of, is it time to break Brown and Tatum up? Is this going to be the year? I'll have to go back and listen to the podcast. We might have talked about that in the season prediction. We might have teased, hey, if this ain't this year, you got to look at this. You can't be looking up, if you're the Utah Jazz with Gobert and Mitchell and just like, hey, we're going to keep running it back. Like, at a certain point, like, it's broke, you got to fix it. But just impressive all the way around. I mean, I think the Heat will continue to tweak things and evolve. I think it's going to be tough. I don't think Kyle Lowry is worth the money they got him for. I think he was helpful. I think he was a helpful locker room presence too. But, shout out to them. Shout out to Jimmy Butler, who just had a heck of a playoff run. We talked about that last time. But, I mean, the guy it's Game 6 to force it to go to 7. What was it, 47 points?
Yeah, I have it up right now because that was one of the greatest surviving elimination games I've seen. And it's obviously everyone made the thing because Game 6 LeBron against the Boston, which was most one of his top 5 best games. But Jimmy shot 55% from the field, 50% from 3, had 47 points, 4 steals, 8 assists, 9 rebounds, and that was in Game 6 in Boston to push them to Game 7. And then he also dropped the 35 in Game 7 and only did not play 2 minutes out of Game 6 and Game 7. He sat out 2 minutes in Game 6, didn't sit out of Game 7. And if he had a little bit more help, I mean, they win this series. I guess I'm going to say right now, I have no issue with the shot Jimmy took in Game 7. I don't. Like, he earned the right to take that shot. And let's just be honest, if it got to overtime, they were going to lose.
Yeah, they were gassed. Both teams were gassed. I think that's another part, too, an underrated part of, the competitiveness and the level of playoff basketball we're seeing is, like, I think at times you will get blowouts because guys are so gassed. They're like, yep, fold it in next game. I think we saw that. There were a couple of times where the Cavs whooped some butt in, those back-to-back-to-back years of the Warriors where we'd come home and we'd dunk on them. Like, and then we'd go to Golden State and they'd dunk on us. Like, yeah. I mean, Jimmy absolutely deserved that shot. I mean, I respect the heck out of him for taking that. I mean, that's that Kobe mentality. That's that next level thing. But talk about a guy whose narrative has shifted a lot. I mean, like, it feels like it was yesterday we were doing the Rachel Nichols, like, weird scheduled interview after he ripped Wiggins in practice and called him soft and was dogging Towns and forcing his way out of Minnesota. But, I mean, the emergence of, you had this young pup on the Bulls team as an afterthought with, Derrick Rose and everything else to where he's at now. I hope he gets a ring at some point somewhere, if it's with the Heat or not. But, like, he's definitely elevated, I think, his career trajectory with this playoff. Like, everybody's going to remember, I think, that was the Butler playoffs, like, where he just went nuts. Like, if the Celtics do a legacy in the next few years and, like, there's, like, a 20-year from now, like, video on it, they're going to say, yeah, 2022, they had to face Jimmy Butler and, everything else. Like, that dude was just a bad dude in a good way. Like, his wallet, bad, on it.
It's interesting, too, for the fact that the weird stat that the past three like champions have beaten Jimmy Butler. Like obviously the Lakers did, the Raptors, and then like the Bucks. And I really felt like Jimmy's stuff really changed when he got in Philadelphia. Because if he was still in Philadelphia right now, they would be in the finals. Like, but
yeah,
they made their choice.
Yeah.
They made their choice, which that was their choice. And obviously that was kind of
Jimmy wanted to stay there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Joel Embiid you have your MVP past 2 years, second place, saying, "Man, Jimmy should have still been here." I don't know why they got rid of him. Like open.
Also tweeting, Miami needs another star.
Well, and he said that too, and I felt like that was more a dig at Bam Adebayo than him saying he was going to go there. But speaking of that, another Utah Jazz person, Evan, do we see a Donovan Mitchell going to Miami?
You know, I'm not. It's tough. I don't know. I don't know if Miami's like. I'd have to really look at how the Heat would do it. Like, I think there's enough teams with picks and swaps and young up and comers that like. I mean, Miami. I just don't know has. I mean, let's just cross off players that aren't going to be in the trade and players that effectively age out that the Jazz don't want. PJ Tucker, Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, like all those folks fit those categories. Tyler Hero would have to be involved in the trade for sure. Future First would have to be involved in the trade for sure. I don't know if they would take like as productive as Strus and they signed Robinson to a size so that leads us to Thursday night.
Yes. Finally,
because I just went off on, I just went off basically said, hey, Mitchell's got to go somewhere. I don't know if it's the Heat. I rattled off all the players. I think either aged out of like the interest of Utah, or again, I don't know that Robinson, Strus provide enough value cobbled together with Tyler Hero in first to get that done. Like I think there's other teams that can offer competitively more.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't know. Just one I thought of was like, hey,
there's going to be so much movement, and then you've got the Thunder too, sitting there with all these picks coming up. I think that at some point they're going to be in the running for something somewhere.
I agree. I agree. We're gonna have to wait and see. Like, we always say that the offseason will be very interesting, but just for like where these contenders are going to try and make moves. Because obviously Miami's like, we were 1 3-pointer away from going to the NBA finals. So what can we do to improve? Especially with the Eastern Conference.
Now we did not talk about that. Last piece on the series. So again, Tatum, Butler, league of their own, phenomenal. Like they elevated this series in their own career path, tremendous as a result of this. But so, like, am I off base by saying I'm not totally convinced that angle they keep showing is definitively clear his foot was out of bounds? I think it's gray enough that you have to call it. I don't think, that's clear-cut proof his heel is off by an inch. Like, I think it's tough to tell on the angle. Like, maybe I've not seen all the right angles. Like, I'm like, I don't get what people are up in arms about.
Yeah. I think, like, when I watched it, I was just like, I mean, they made their decision.
It looked like he put I'm trying to recall. It looked like he put his heel down and, like, he was catching the ball to fire as he was lifting it up. Like, and it was like bang, bang. Like, he couldn't quite tell. Like, by the time I think he caught it and made an upward motion, his heel was rising off the baseline. But I don't know. And then you got the discussion of, like, was the other foot clear enough, or, like, was he established enough? If he was out, did he reestablish himself conversation? Because that's another piece of it, too. Like, and I know it's so bang. I just don't, like, if it's gray enough, I think you can't ignore that. Because imagine if it went in the other way. Like, imagine if they count it and, like, you got this footage now of, like, was it still out of bounds? Like, here's an idea. Like, you got so much space, and I know it's, like, a fast-moving game, but, like, move the corners in, man.
Yeah, that's just
Like, you got space. Like, move those giant clodhopper shoes off the line. Like, how many times do we've talked about that in the spot all the time. That, especially too when you do the pump fake corner three, and your first instinct is to stick your plant foot backwards
yep.
as you drive. Like, just be mindful of where you're at. Like, the corner three has completely changed the game of basketball, but like, it also comes with you're in the phone booth, man. Like, you gotta be mindful where you're sticking those size 14 shoes.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know, but nonetheless, we got NBA Finals starts Thursday night, Martin, between the Golden State Warriors, who will host, and the Boston Celtics. I'm excited. I think historically which way I'm going to root for of these two teams left. But it's going to be good basketball nonetheless. Can the good switchy long defense of Boston and the emergence of Jason Tatum outlast the steady diet of shooters and offensive movement? And I mean, quite honestly, like, who beats that Warriors crowd at home, man?
That's true. It's still not the same like an Oracle Arena since they went to their new arena, but it's still once the Warrior chants start going, it's really hard to beat them. It's really hard.
Boston's no treat to play in either, but I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like it's like more of like a cheat code for Golden State than it is Boston. Like, it's intimidating to be in Boston. I mean, those fans are ruthless. They'll tell you everything about your mother and everything else. Like, if I'm putting on my thick Boston accent, but they'll say some not so nice things to you. Yeah, I mean, but that's collectively, that Golden State crowd is something to mess with. So, Martin, we got game one Thursday night. Who do you like in the series? What are some fascinating storylines for you? All the above.
Well, I do like the Warriors in the series. I feel like every series I've said it could go 7, but this is another one where it could go 7. Boston's defense is really impressive. It's just, I don't know if they're going to have enough. Just seeing those blowouts with the Heat and seeing Jimmy do what he was doing against them. Now you got Marcus Smart has to obviously pick up Steph Curry like half court, and then you got Klay Thompson, you got Jordan Poole. Like, you have all these different players. And then offensively, on the Boston side, yeah, you think of Tatum, you think of Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart in a way too. But when those threes from the Warriors start falling, I just don't see Boston being able to keep up with them unless they muddy the game. But from a storyline wise, I think, besides the stuff that's already been said by the main media, me personally, whoever wins the third quarter each game is who I think is going to win that game. Because of the Warriors, which I've said since 2015, they could be down by 15 or 20 in the second quarter, and then after the third quarter, they're up by 10. Like, that is their quarter.
They're the scariest team. They're the scary. No lead is ever safe with the Golden State Warriors, like no other team I've seen.
So if Boston can hang with them in the third quarter, they have a shot. Right now, I am leaning the Warriors. And obviously storylines with, if Boston does win, this fully completes the ascent of a 24-year-old Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. If the Warriors do win, that's their 4th title together. And then potentially, if Steph Curry and them win and he gets finals MVP, that's his first finals MVP. His trophy case is complete with 4 titles, a finals MVP, 2 MVPs. Like, there's a lot riding for both sides. You obviously got Boston trying to catch up with LA in titles. So there's a lot historically for both teams. Both coaches too are from the Greg Popovich tree. So you have that going as well. You see his influence on the league. He has 2 people coaching in the finals. There's a lot, man, storyline wise. That's why it's going to be a very, very good series. How about you?
Yeah, a lot of things. That's great on the Curry trophy case thing. I mean, again, like, that's going to be crazy if that doesn't happen. That's going to be crazy to look back at Curry's career and be like, he was never Finals MVP once out of 3 rings. like, or at least, because I mean he could well win, obviously, some more moving forward. But I think that's interesting. I'm interested to see health as a topic in this. So like, I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to pick the Boston Celtics to win the NBA Finals. I just don't know that Golden State has seen a defensive juggernaut like this before. And, while they had prime Klay Thompson with both ACLs and Kevin Durant, and they could, run through just about anything and everything, I just don't know they've seen a team that can switch like this. I mean, Golden State, I think Al Horford, somehow, he's not a guy you want to be switched on to Curry, but if he's on the floor, I think, he can at least contest. I mean, Curry's still going to hit ridiculous fadeaway, no-look stuff. But, like, that's not a guy I'm scared to death of if he gets switched on an individual matchup on an ISO. I think same thing with Rob Williams. I think same thing with Grant Williams. Like, you got from Williams to Brown to Tatum to Time Lord to Marcus Smart. I think all these guys are just so talented in their individual defense, and then as a team too. I think that they can really clamp down, and then offensively, I think that when Looney's on the court, I think when at Curry, they're gonna do everything that they can with Brown and Tatum to switch onto Curry every chance they get on an offensive set to make Curry work defensively and just beat him down. So other talking points, Steve Kerr adding to his coaching trophy case. It wasn't that long ago that, Kerr was like, do I go with my mentor, Phil Jackson, to the New York Knicks, or do I go to Golden State? And here we are, where he potentially could be looking at a fourth title. And got storyline. Ime Udoka is a first-time head coach, is winning 2 Game 7s. I think he's the first-time head coach to win 2 Game 7s in a playoff year. And then going on to the NBA Finals if he were to win in his first year. And that's interesting about, with, Brad moving to the front office too. Like, that guy's got to feel like, crap, if I'd stayed on one more year, could we have done this? I don't know if they would have responded the way they respond to Ime, and that's why you do coaching changes to see, just how you can shuffle the deck to an extent. But Martin, over under, how many combined texts for Marcus Smart and Draymond Green in the series?
6.
6?
Yep, 6.
How many flagrants?
2.
Draymond's good for at least one a series. Come on.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it 2. I'll each get one flagrant.
I'll give it 2 as well. Like, it just interesting. I think I've heard some rumblings like Peyton, I think, should be able to play in the series. I think
it'll be close.
Read that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll see. Obviously, I mean, health is going to have a lot to say in who wins the series. I mean, like, Smart's been banged up. Time Lord's been banged up with his knee. Like, on the Celtics side of things, obviously they're down Peyton on Golden State side. Iguodala hasn't played. There's a lot of extra layers and wrinkles to this too. Again, I do think it's fascinating that you have, like, you swap out KD essentially, and the Warriors are still humming along. I mean, they're just a great system. They're a great franchise. As much as I want to dog them that we went to war with them for how many years and only walked out with 1 title to Cleveland, but again, like, if I'm the Cavs, like, if I could rearrange the money somehow, I'd love to, like, in the next couple of years or something, go after an Andrew Wiggins and bring him back, to play for us officially. I just think he's done such a great job this year on the defensive side of the ball, fitting into the team, not having to be this big score first wing that everybody built him to be when he came in the league. But there's so many moving pieces here. I look forward to a great series of the defensive Boston, and the offensive everything of the Golden State system, Martin. I think it's going to be a good 6 or 7.
And that's going to be exciting. Like, we got to end this year with a bang. A lot of history for both teams on the line, and no other way that we would want to end the NBA season. So I do know some people do talk about, though, I think we've talked about this during the bubble, the start times for the games. Do we wish they could start at like 8:00? Because I'm assuming all the finals games are going to be starting at 9.
Yeah, West Coast, and I get like for the West Coast crowd and stuff, but like, I mean, East Coast. I mean, again, outside of the Pacific time zone, like you got 75% of like America, like not, where that's late for them. So I mean, I struggle with that. Like I legitimately struggle staying up watching the second half of a basketball game. Like if I can make it through the first half, how many times between you and I'll fall asleep unintentionally in the third quarter, and I wake up and respond to you like 2 a.m. when I see that you were able to stay up. And I'm like, oh man, like I can't believe I missed it. Can't believe I missed that ending. Can't believe I missed that in the fourth or this or that. Like it's tough. You're right. I think it hurts viewership. I think it hurts, finances when you can't have viewers to go back to marketing folks and say, hey, like here's how many eyeballs saw this ad. Like across the board, like I think there's a way to split this up where I don't know. I just think there's a way to split this up or somehow stretch out the series. Like I think it'd be tactful in having. So we're gonna have game 1 on Thursday. Game 2 is projected Saturday, right?
Yeah.
Like I think there's, somehow I think there's a strategic way. Like even if it's bumping back and making use of like Memorial Day weekend, and like if you were to bump back the entire season schedule and like have it like say like, hey, game 1 of the finals will start on Saturday, and you get that second game in on like Memorial Day Monday when most everybody's off. You can have those 2 games in prime time at like 5:00, like because people are off work for the most. You know what I mean? Like
I do have the schedule up for you though.
Schedule. Yeah.
So Thursday it's 9:00. Game 2 is Sunday at 8:00. Then game 3 is Wednesday.
There's no reason for that to be 8:00 on a Sunday night.
No.
I think you can make that earlier.
You could. Then Wednesday, June 8th is 9. Then Friday, June 10th is 9. And then game 5 if necessary.
And those are East Coast games. Like they're comping for the West Coast who shouldn't have to watch a game. I get it at 4:00, but like if you make it 7:30, like I don't know. Like I think that helps a little bit, but just why 9:00 on the East Coast?
Especially since the games won't even start till like 9:20.
Oh yeah, there's what was it? Was it game 7? Yeah, game 7. I was sitting around watching. I'm like, I know this drill. I'll tune in maybe 11 minutes after, and it was every bit of 20 minutes after the start time. Like that's a thing that it's tough. I think you're hurting yourselves, NBA. Fix this scheduling gods.
Evan, anything else?
Some quick hits here on scheduling. I've heard there's been serious movement on putting in the next CBA that big old cash cow of a mid-season or beginning of the season tournament. So it'll be interesting to see how details emerge with that. I think we're starting to hear rumbling. We're going to hear very quick during the finals. There's going to be some player movement chatter, more coaching chatter. Some other odds and ends. The Lakers have hired their man from Milwaukee, so we'll see how that goes. There's other, again, I think dust to settle on some coaching things around the league too. There rumors surfaced again this week that hey, the NBA is looking hard at expanding a team back to Seattle and also bringing a team to Vegas. I absolutely think that happens within the next 4 years on the latest of the time frames that we leaked your announcement. I think we're moving back towards that. Martin, I think we'd be remiss not to talk about Steve Kerr's comments this week. What stood out to you on the wake of yet another horrific school tragedy with the death of 20 plus kids in an elementary school in Texas? And essentially, if you guys aren't familiar, I'm sure you are, that, Steve Kerr yielded his comments to basically, this is painting it lightly, but, saying, hey, I'm like, our team's gonna be fine. We got a game plan. We watch film, like, yada. But like, we need to talk about like some serious stuff going on in the world right now. Like, Mark, just what were your thoughts kind of watching the clips of that press conference? And again, using I think times like I always get frustrated when people use their quote unquote platform to push X, Y, or Z. But I mean, to me, this just felt very appropriate, like on the eves of some serious traumatic stuff for the country and, and I work my day job, listeners, I work in education. Like, it's one of those things that, everybody feels it. I likened it to, if you work in aviation and, like a plane goes down, like when you have that level of mass casualties, like your industry is affected, you feel it. Like everybody sends their kids to school the next morning. Everybody's hopping on a flight somewhere the next day. Like it's similar, but in the horrificness of it. But Martin, just thoughts on how Steve Kerr just, took the time to address it. He's done this throughout his career. I think a lot of that comes to, losing his father, again, and you see having him as a mentor to champion change, in his international work. I think, there's just a lot of who Steve Kerr is because of his dad in there and, the values he holds, and to use his position as a coach to say, yep, we've got the game plan, but we're going to address the nation here. Martin, what are your thoughts?
Before I give my thoughts on that, since we are going to be talking about this for a little bit, I do also want to say the teacher that passed away, Ama, she is actually the mother of Jose Garcia. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because Jose Garcia is in the same fraternity that myself and Cedric, who is on the 07C podcast, is on as well. So we're definitely sending and obviously his then father died of a broken heart since his wife was killed. He died of a heart attack or so 24 hours after that. So definitely had to share, since we were bringing it up, since he is a brother to me in our fraternity. So had to bring that up, and condolences to the family. In terms of Steve Kerr, because most people don't know that his dad was basically assassinated. He was killed. If you didn't see The Last Dance, on how like they asked if he and Michael bonded because both their fathers were killed. I think it definitely was appropriate. I mean, I wasn't expecting it, but I was expecting it because the way he is. And I mean, he's right. He's right in the fact that we're at this point now.
And specifically his dad died of gun violence specifically.
Yeah. We're at this point now where I saw the stat that people who survived Columbine have kids now. And that was really like the first big shooting thing, and to think how far from a negative standpoint we've come with that. But he's right. I mean, there has to be some sort of coming together from both parties, because I think that's the issue with I think that's the issue with the country at the point where we make it party issues.
We get too into our camp.
And it's not a people issue. And this country was founded on doing what's best for the people. And we've really lost sight of that in the past couple of years. So I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what type of leader it's going to take to sit both sides down. Like, look, man, Republican, Democrat, Green Party, Independent, we're all parents. We're all grandparents. Our kids go to school too. This could happen to our kids. This could happen to our nieces, nephews. We got to figure something out and work something, because it's like he said, we definitely can't get numb to it, because these are kids, man. Like, these are people who aren't even making out of like first grade, having to worry about their school getting shot. But it's also a point too. It's like with parents, obviously, parents had to go through so much with COVID and like helping, like basically be quasi teachers for their kids when they were at home, and And now it's just like, in this new era, do you even want to send your kids to school? Do you want to just homeschool them? Or I've even seen from the fact is like, some people are saying they don't even want to have kids because of fear of, I'm sending them to school. This could be the last time I see them. So he's right on the fact that we need to make change. It was applauded mostly, generally. I think the only thing I had an issue with, not really, because I'm a fair person. So even though I'm sorry if people are a fan of his, but I mean, I'm not really a Mitch McConnell fan by any means, but I think with Kerr only calling him out, I felt like that was the only thing I would have critiqued if I was a critique person, because it's both sides that's messing this up, that we're not getting something done. So that'd be the only thing I would have.
Yeah, I think it's.
I would have just called out everybody.
I think you're right there. I'd immediately thought about that, but again, I think that I come from the camp of, in for 99% of his comments, with the exception of that, like if you're going to find one thing, like it was an ad hominem attack of pulling out an individual name, and like I think the way you win arguments is with better arguments, and I think that watered down a hair what he had to say. But again, for a guy who's endured so much, has experienced the grief and the pain firsthand of losing a parent like that, on the inverse, I think he is absolutely one to empathize. And I'm always too, I hate when players come at us and like don't comment on our personal lives or whatever or what have you, but like at the same hand they talk out of both ends of their mouth and say again, like I want to speak up for this XYZ, what have you. And it's just I just applaud Steve. I think this is very appropriate for Steve to do, to say, hey, there's more things important in this world than basketball, and clearly another unfortunate, harrowing reminder of that. But I think we got to find consensus, across the board on a lot of different areas if we're gonna, resolve this issue and remove the anxiety and not become numb to these things, and to make progress across the board. We can't be in camps. We have to care about humans at the end of the day, across the board. I think we have to listen. I think we have to be empathetic to what the other sides are saying. And we can't just close the door and say, hey, this is my belief system. It is what it is. And it's easy to be, have a position when you're away from it, when you're moved from it, right? Like, look at the Ukraine war right now. Before wars were played out, we heard about them in the newspaper. Now we're seeing it in real time. I think, that's brought a level of reality to things that we've never seen before, in trying to process some tough stuff, that we're seeing. But the only other comment I'd say is I think we have, and I'm glad I haven't seen it. I haven't dug into this a lot, Martin, but I think also, like, I think we're seeing it more, but the media has a huge role to play in here. Is like, I just think there should be some universal, like, law passed with media outlets of like, don't air the person's name. Like, because I think that's when it becomes polarized. When you talk about it in the media, if there's people on the fringe, of, I mean, whatever, manic episode leads somebody to do something that awful, that, that incentivizes, hey, like, I'll be famous out of this, or I'll have a book out of this, or like when I'm gone, they'll whatever. Like, it helps, I think, plant the seed and perpetuate it and make it look like you're a movie star. Like I mean, back in the day, like Bonnie and Clyde, they were mega stars. Like when they're going around, on their killing and robbery sprees and stuff like that across Indiana. Like I think there's a level of polarization there that ethically we have to be responsible for, and keep the person's name out and not give them what they were looking for. I think that's another level to it, but it's a complex issue. I applaud Steve for, again, we all get caught up. We've got a freaking podcast about basketball, and we love basketball, but, I think too that there's a time to remind ourselves and, have somebody like Steve Kerr be dad for America and be like, hey, like, basketball's cool and all, but like, it's not the most important thing in this world. And to that same token, what I love about basketball is, for all the tough things going on in the world, is, hey, for 4 quarters, I can get my mind off of some things like that, and it can be a release of sorts to, again, get away from the constant news cycles of, bringing crazy things to our doorstep every day, and bring to the anxiety you're talking about with parents and everything else. But that was a long curtail. That was something of note. I thought it was very appropriate by Kerr, right, wrong, and different, just to, again, use that opportunity to say, hey, basketball's cool, but we'll be fine. But, here's what's not fine. So.
Yeah, man. I mean, he's think no, because Popovich is still in the league. I was going to say he's the coach with the most rings right now and one of the most recognizable franchises in the NBA right now. Obviously, he's played with greats, he's coached greats, and he's been passionate about people. And when it like I've already said, man, like I can understand where two sides might have differing opinions on how we spend the country's budget. That's fine, but when it comes to protecting kids at school, that should never be a party issue. That has to be a United States of America issue. There's a reason United is right before states, and that's the first word we say when we talk about America. So, but on a lighter note, the only quick bits I wanted to say were today was the anniversary, since we do like the Cavs and do like LeBron. Today is the anniversary of the 29 out of the last 25 straight in the Game 5 double OT against the Pistons, where LeBron, just around 22, took that Cavs team to the finals and lost to the Spurs. And it's also the same anniversary of the 51-8-8 game where the J.R. Smith meme was created against the Warriors. Just to end on a lighter note.
LeBron. Two unbelievable performances. There's a lot of things that pop out in my career. Those are definitely towards the top. Like I remember early on, his first 50-point game was on the road against. I'll have to double check myself after. It was on the road against the Raptors. I think he dropped 56.
56.
Playing against Vince Carter. And again, I think nothing will beat those two superhuman performances. Again, even if the Cavs won that game, the J.R. Smith game, they weren't winning the series against the superhuman Durant team. That might be the best team of all time. It was just a freak show in terms of athletic skill. But again, that Pistons performance, I still can't believe what he was able to do with the group he had with him, and against a phenomenal Detroit Pistons team defensively. The no regard dunk, what he was able to do against their post players of Ben and Rashid and Antonio McDyess. It's just impressive. And it's not like Billups and Rip Hamilton were necessarily matadors saying, "Hey, run right by me," either. And plus two, he had Tayshaun Prince in his prime on him every night, of that series. It's just absolutely amazing. I'll never see anything like that again. And yes, a great way to end the pod, Martin, on two positive notes and Cavs lore that will go down forever.
And we will be back to review the NBA Finals. And we also, depending on when Evan wants to do this, we will actually do a podcast just strictly on the Cavs and how they ended the season. Obviously, we'll talk about the expectations that they had at the beginning, how we exceeded those expectations.
An off-season Cavalanche.
Yeah, so we will have that coming to you guys soon. Be on the lookout for that. But again, NBA Finals start this Thursday. Let's finish the year strong. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the L7C podcast. Signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.